Hey everybody, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and on today's video we're going to be taking a look at some really easy NES games. So that's right guys, today we're going to be taking a look at some really easy NES games. Now before we get started with the video, I hate to do this, but I'm about to hit 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. And it would be greatly appreciated if you like what you see, if you could go down, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and as Batman says, tell your friends about me. Anything you can do to share it out would be greatly appreciated. I've been at this 10 years now, and I just hit I'm about to hit 25,000 subscribers. Who knows, if I do this for another 30, maybe I'll finally get that YouTube plaque, right? Anyways, guys, that would be greatly appreciated. So today we're talking about easy NES games, and when you think Nintendo, you don't think easy. In fact, you think brutal difficulty. In fact, gaming in this era is considered to be NES hard. That's a statement that a lot of people use. But the games we're talking about today definitely don't fit into that category. In fact, one of them so easy, it's actually considered to be bad by one reviewer. So these games today I'm talking about, you guys that are looking to get some instant NES cred and knock a couple games off your list, these are the ones you want to play right away to say you beat some NES games. Anyways, let's get on with the list. To survive a war, you gotta become war, at least according to John Rambo, and as we all know, war is hell, but with Guerrilla War on the NES, I think you should have somewhat of an easier time. Guerrilla War is a port of an arcade game by SNK that was released in 1987 here in North America, and as we go on to describe this game's difficulty, you will understand why I consider this to be a direct port. For those not familiar with Guerrilla War, it's an overhead run-and-gun game reminiscent of another famous SNK NES arcade port, Akari Warriors. Funny enough, this game is actually loosely based on real historic events and people, as player 1 is the revolutionary Che Guevara, and you follow his exploits taking down the Batista regime in Cuba in the late 1950s. Player 2 in the game was none other than Fidel Castro himself. Of course, that was the Japanese version, and none of that would fly in the USA, so SNK changed everything for the North American localization. I loved army games as a kid, so I'm surprised that I never played this until much later in life, and funny enough, the very first time I played it, I actually beat it. In fact, anyone who plays it can beat it on their first try, as long as they have the 30 to 45-ish minutes it takes to play through it. It is because the game is just too easy. No, in fact, it's actually brutally difficult, and under what will be normal circumstances, it would be considered one of the harder games on the system. But remember when I said it was almost a direct arcade port? Well, what makes it so direct is that it's basically a direct port of the arcade game with toned-down graphics for the NES, and that includes the game's difficulty and rules. See, the thing about arcade games is they were designed to be brutally difficult to limit your playtime per quarter, but intriguing enough to keep you pumping the quarters in. Usually when an arcade game is ported to home consoles, they tone down the difficulty slightly and limit the amount of lives and continues a player has in order to beat the game. A prime example of this is another SNK war-based game I love, Prisoner of War. But with Guerrilla War, they strangely decided to leave the difficulty ramped up to 11, which leads to a frantic and fun experience, but they also included unlimited continues, which isn't uncommon for an NES game. Some of the best have them. But not only can you continue as much as you want, but you can also start playing again exactly at the part where you died at without losing any progress, just like in the arcades when you could quarter in. While this doesn't make the game bad by any means, it will affect some people's interest in replaying it. It's still a great game with great action, awesome visuals that SNK are known for, and pretty decent music. It's just a game you will beat the very first time you play it because of its rule set. Whatever, grab a friend, have fun blasting everything, and notch a NES Conquest on your belt when you are done. Yeah, what's up, Doc? It's Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout. I loved Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle as a kid and thought the world of the puzzle maze type atmosphere, so I was extremely interested in seeing what they would do with a platformer, but unfortunately, it's not very much. I am not by any means saying the game is bad, it just kind of exists. The graphics are fairly good with all the Looney Tunes characters being properly represented in 8-bit. The platforming isn't broken and the game is certainly playable, but people do consider it a bad game, and I think that can be attributed to its difficulty and a certain review of the game from 2009. For longtime YouTube gaming fans, I am sure you're all very familiar with the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Birthday Blowout, where he tears the game apart. The thing that really stuck out to me, of course, were his comments on just how goddamn easy it was. Now, unlike our last game, it isn't impossible not to beat it unless you choose not to. No, you can certainly die and see a game over in this one, it just isn't very likely. The platforming difficulty would be considered extremely light, as most stages are simple enough to get through and you can essentially walk through the enemies en route to completing the stage. The boss battles aren't that much more difficult, as the patterns are super simple and even without them you can basically have to try and die. It's so easy that it actually becomes a little boring and you are basically just going through the motions to progress in this game. Maybe that is the true difficulty, staving off the monotony of the game to see it through to its end. Well, like I mentioned, you can die by having your hearts depleted, by getting hit too many times, or by falling into a hole. I wouldn't really be concerned about those aspects either, because they are very liberal with the amount of extra lives you will collect along your quest, and I do mean very liberal. I don't know if it's possible enough to die half as much in this game compared to the number of extra lives you will collect throughout this quest. The difficulty is just way too light, and this game could have been greatly improved with a difficulty setting option, in my opinion. I will throw out my assumption on why the game was programmed like this, because for NES enthusiasts, you know this wasn't the norm with games on this 8-bit juggernaut. I'm assuming the target user was small children. I don't mean like us badasses that were 10 when this game came out, but really small kids, like 5, where the challenge would have been maybe a little too much and scared them away. That had to be the reason, otherwise they just made an average game with a beloved character even worse by making the gameplay so meaningless. Play at your own risk, but another easy one to check off your list. Akari 3 The Rescue is actually Akari Warriors 3, just with the title shortened for whatever reason. We are all familiar with the Akari Warrior games on the NES that were actually SNK ports of arcade games as well, and so is Akari 3. Akari 3 is a classic run and punch, just like the other games in the series. Wait, the other games in the series were run and guns, so where are the guns, guys? I guess we are at the point where we are so macho, we no longer need guns and can punch and kick the shit out of a whole army. I do love the strange jump kick the characters in Akari 3 are using, and it reminds me so much of the weird jump kick in POW, Prisoners of War. Before we say anything else, we have to talk about the awesome cover art of this game. Definitely a step up from the previous 2 games with the buff dudes gorilla pressing bad guys and just beating the shit out of an entire army. If there was ever a picture that encapsulated the feeling of dudes in the 80s, this is it, despite the game coming out in the early 90s. Funny enough, most games featured clickbait art, but this one was pretty much on the nose, as this is what you will be doing in the game. I want to give my friends Stu, Mr. Dude 206 on YouTube, and Chris, Slang_Mold on YouTube, a bunch of credit because I polled them what was some easy games and they both jumped and suggested this one. I had never really put that much time into it and assumed it was just as difficult as the first 2 Akari Warrior games, but boy was I wrong. The Akari Warrior games are also SNK arcade ports like the first game we covered, Guerrilla War, but unlike Guerrilla War, Akari 1 and 2 have limited lives and actually 0 continues. It's just game over, so the difficulty is super high, especially in the first game with 1-hit kills, and the second game has a single life bar. But there is an out in both games where you can use a special code after you die to continue right from that spot. All you have to do is hit ABBA, and you will continue essentially coining back in like in the arcade. Sound familiar? Well, what makes Akari 3 so easy is they actually cut out the middleman and you no longer need a cheat code to continue. You just do, just like in Guerrilla War. That's right, it's another game with no consequences, you just beat the shit out of every enemy and never worry about dying permanently. I will say the first 2 games in the series are brutally difficult. Too much so, honestly, without that code, so I get getting rid of it for the third, but why not do what so many other NES arcade ports did and modify the experience to make it a better home console game? I'm not sure why they didn't, but I guess we have to give them some credit because you do get to bring that true arcade experience home and even enjoy it with a friend. Akari 3 is super duper easy, but it's still worth a run through every now and then for the experience SNK provides here. Just don't expect the challenge dopamine rush us NES enthusiasts crave. So guys, that's my list of really easy NES games. For those of you who've been watching the channel for a while now, you know how I do these videos. It's always 3 games, and I know you guys want to see more. But we can do that later on down the road. Maybe I'll make a second part to this video and you guys can help me out with it. Let me know down in the comments what are some other really easy games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. What do you think should be included in one of these lists in the future? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with my choices? Disagree with my choices? I'm open to hearing your feedback. I want to say thank you so much to everybody for watching. It's so good to be making a video about the NES again, and this is a big thank you to all my longtime followers who have stuck with me through all my home arcade stuff. Glad you stuck it out and hope you enjoyed this video. Anyways, this is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.